Episode 78, Expanding Consciousness. Hi, this is Ruth Elizabeth Hancock, and welcome to Work Your Energy podcast, which is a show all about how to thrive in this energetic universe that we live in. Today's topic is actually a listener's request who asked me to explain more about what expanding consciousness is and also how we can do it, and in particular focusing on Dr. David Hawkins' table, levels of consciousness, which also corresponds to emotions. So first, let's just quickly understand what consciousness is. The dictionary states it is awareness. So expanding your consciousness only means expanding your awareness. However, this gets more complicated when we see that consciousness is everything. Consciousness drives subatomic matter. It literally drives the universe. It is an intelligence, it's intelligent. It is also sentient, which means that it can feel and sense. And consciousness is the entire universe. It is us. We could see nature as being the physical manifestation of consciousness in terms of creation. But essentially, consciousness is energy, and everything is energy. So how do we understand the difference between consciousness as in the energy field and consciousness as in our consciousness? Well, I think the easiest way of explaining it is to understand that everything is consciousness, we are consciousness. So in order to expand our consciousness, we have to release more of our density. Because density creates energetic blocks or energy blocks in our system, which then stops consciousness from being able to flow through us in a way that, if you like, creates awareness or illuminates us to the true nature of reality. The more you expand your consciousness, your levels of consciousness, the more you start to see and perceive reality in a different way to how you perceived it before. Because consciousness is everything, and in order to experience everything, we need to get beyond the illusions of the mind. We can see that in this physical body that we're in, we are not able to see and perceive and sense all of consciousness, all of the universe, because this would be too much for our brains to handle. And we can see the brain as a receiver of information, but the brain also has inhibitors and stops us from being able to see, feel, and sense all of the universe, all of reality. This is for our own safety, but it's also creating illusions. And as some people have cottoned onto in this reality, the human brain is hackable, as the World Economic Forum's Harari announced in a talk in 2018, which you can see on YouTube. So our minds are hackable, our egos are hackable. If we combine this with the MK Ultra mind control program that the US military ran and we learnt about in the Freedom of Information Act, we can see that mind control and hacking the mind is a thing. But what is being hacked and controlled is our consciousness. And that's why you may see a lot of people talking about a war on consciousness. But why is there a war on consciousness? Well, because reaching higher levels of consciousness is all about reaching higher levels of intelligence, higher consciousness, if you like. And when we get to this higher consciousness, when we get to this higher levels of intelligence, we are no longer hackable. And our energy, our consciousness is ours, which we can use to create a better reality, a better life for ourselves and our families. So let's come back to Dr. David Hawkins' level of consciousness table, which can be found anywhere on Google Images or also in his books. If you look in Power versus Force, you can see it in there. Alternatively, you can just type in Hertz vibrational table of emotions, and you'll also get this table of emotions coming up. So he created a way to measure consciousness using parameters around emotions, thoughts, feelings, etc. And from this, he was able to then relate this back to how we can expand our levels of consciousness in order to move out of the lower vibrational emotions and move up into the higher vibrational emotions. He created a way of measuring the energetic imprints or energy emissions that are given off in the entire electromagnetic spectrum, from ions and photons to infrared, X-ray, through to heat, sound, to electrical and other radiation phenomena, and then to biological life, because we are electrical too. We now know that thoughts can be recorded in terms of their energy emission because it creates an electrical charge, just as emotions do too. In fact, what we see, hear and feel are all electrical impulses, but because we also live in an electrical universe, we are also being affected by the electromagnetic field around us. So if you find one of Dr. David Hawkins' tables online and take a look at it, you can see the Hertz frequency levels and where they sit with the lower end of the scale, which is shame, guilt and apathy, which could be seen as victim mindset, and at the top of the scale, which is enlightenment, peace and joy. As you can see, courage is at 200 and is where humanity is currently sitting, according to Dr. Hawkins, and is described as when life feels exciting and empowering. And certainly, I've noticed in my own life and the lives of the people that I work with, that when we are talking about what we want to talk about, when we're behaving in the way we want to behave, when we are living life in the way we want to live it and enjoying what we do, that life does feel more exciting, more empowering, more joyful. We can see from looking at the table that enlightenment is where we are all heading in terms of expanding our consciousness. And this is the ultimate goal for all of us, to move out of fear, pride, and even desire, because this is mind-based desire he's talking about here, and into courage, acceptance, and reason, which is the mind, and then into love, joy, and peace, which is the heart. So as you look at the table, you can see how you are moving from mind-driven fears into mind-driven logic, and then up into heart-based emotions, feelings, and thoughts. And this is, of course, what raising your vibration is all about. It's raising it through your emotions, raising it through your mind by working on yourself, creating more self-awareness so you can get back to that best version of you. Our lives are actually all about us, learning about ourselves, improving ourselves, being kinder to ourselves, loving ourselves, learning to conquer our fears and the illusions of the mind. And the more you can learn, master, and conquer the illusions of the mind, the more expanded your consciousness will become, which is why this month's blog is all about expanding your consciousness to above the spirit guides, ETs, and angels. Literally taking your consciousness, expanding your consciousness right out of your own being and into source energy, or heart wisdom, if you like. As we unpick our own mind and we start to unpick our childhood traumas, unpick our childhood programming, unpick the beliefs of our parents, our friends, our schools, whatever it may be, as we start to unpick more and more of ourselves, we begin to understand that expanding our consciousness is essentially getting back to yourself, rediscovering who you are, your true self-identity, and also deciding what you want to do with this life. I think this last aspect is very important because consciousness has an intelligence. And as we can see that nature is the physical manifestation of consciousness, everything in nature has a purpose. And as we are also consciousness, it by default means that we have a purpose too. So how do you know when you're living your purpose? Because life will feel more like the emotions at the top of Dr. Hawkins' consciousness scale. If you feel too much fear, apathy, or shame, then you need to understand why, so you can work on eliminating it. The more of these low vibrational emotions which are led by beliefs, emotions can be seen as neutral, and it is the belief behind it which is driving it. So the more of these negative emotions or limiting beliefs that are driving your behavior that you can eliminate, the more you are releasing this blocked energy, this stagnation, this trapped negative emotion or memory from your physical body, from your DNA, as epigenetics tells us. And the more you release this, the more you are now expanding your own consciousness, because you are releasing density and then allowing more consciousness to flood into you, into your energy field, into your physical body. And the more you are able to connect or experience more of the consciousness of the energy field that you live in, that you exist in, the more you are able to connect to the higher intelligence of the field, to the higher consciousness of the field, to the higher dimensions of the field, because dimensions are not necessarily places to go, they are states of being. So as you move into the higher dimensions, you're by default expanding your consciousness, because that allows you to move up, to raise your vibration into the higher intelligence, the higher consciousness, the higher dimensions. And the more you can live in this world in the higher dimensions, the better your life will be, because you are then working on a higher dimensional setting yourself. You are attracting higher vibrational opportunities, you're attracting higher vibrational people, you're attracting higher vibrational experiences to you, because you are existing in a higher dimensional plane yourself. So essentially, we expand our consciousness using two different methods. And I talk about this in the entire chapter 2 of my book, Work Your Energy. And I also give you some meditations to follow as well, and some tools and techniques to use. So if this is something that you're new to, then read through chapter 2, which will really help. But for now, let's just summarize it into two categories. Now, there are other categories, but I try and simplify everything. And I think these two categories are the most important. And that is, we move ourselves up into the higher dimensions, expanding our consciousness through our emotional state, which is keeping yourself happy as much as you possibly can. And that, of course, is all about managing the mind, because it's the mind, the negative thoughts, the worries and fears that take over, that pull our vibration down. So we need to learn to manage the mind and move ourselves up out of the mind and back into the heart. And that's the easiest way to do it. The second thing that you can do is start to work on releasing and eliminating these beliefs that are not helping you. These are called limiting beliefs, and also the limiting stories that we may have picked up from our childhood, or even just limited thinking, limited beliefs that we've picked up from watching the news or watching movies, things that are not helping us to live a better life in this physical world. Brené Brown always says that she's unable to watch scary movies, and that's because she knows that when we watch this, it's actually bringing our vibration down. It's pulling us into lower dimensions, lower dimensional states of being, and to a certain extent even creates energetic imprints, lower vibrational energetic imprints in our own minds, which then also pull us down, because these imprints link back to memories and energetic imprints that come from our childhood, our ancestors, whatever it may be. These could be seen as programs or beliefs or however you want to view them, but they're already in our psyche. They're already in the psyche of the collective consciousness. And because they're already in there, the more we see these scary images being shown to us in these scary movies, the more it is creating more trauma in our own minds, because our brains cannot tell the difference between watching TV, reality, and imagination, which is visualization, because it's all the same. And that is how we can change our reality or change our lives, simply by visualizing the life we want to have, using the technique of visualization every single day to visualize how you want your life to look that day, what you want your life to look like in the future. This can actually take you into different timelines of our own lives, because we are creating our own lives every single second of our day. And if we are not mastering our mind and directing our mind, then we will end up in a place where we do not want to be. So it is the mind that directs the energy, and it's the energy that directs our life. So when we stay in these higher dimensions, in these higher states of being, we are allowing our energy to flow on a higher plane, on a higher realm, if you like. And that allows us to live a far better life in this physical world to someone else who is existing in the lower dimensions of fear, apathy, guilt, shame, judgment, whatever it may be. Their life is going to look very different to the life of someone who is staying within the higher dimensions, aka higher vibrational emotions of peace, love, compassion, contentment, gratitude, forgiveness. Now you can see how our minds can be hijacked. So if we are regularly shown images of fear, trauma, abuse, then this is what our mind believes, this is where our consciousness will stay, and we will stay in those lower vibrational realms, in those lower vibrational dimensions, because they're literally just states of being. The more scary or fearful things that you watch, read, and see, the more your mind is being kept, your consciousness is being kept in this lower vibrational state, which means that you are living in a lower dimensional world, and your world is not going to be as much fun or enjoyable as it would be if you can raise your vibration. So let's look at an example of how belief can shape the world of masses of people. We look at North Korea. So North Korea are not allowed to see, experience, or hear anything from outside of North Korea. So they only watch television channels which are within North Korea. They do not know anything about the Western world except what they hear through people who may have traveled. We can see that they live in a very limited world. Their world is limited to their country only. Now if we move this out into the bigger, wider world, and we look at how are your beliefs shaping your reality now in your life. Through the process of journaling, you will start to learn many of the beliefs that you've been holding for the entirety of your life are not true. For example, beliefs around money tend not to be true because they are picked up in our childhood or from the mass poverty of our ancestors and what they experienced in the past. By unpicking your limited beliefs around money, you can really start to claim back your life. But there are also beliefs in all areas of your life. Maybe you have romantic beliefs. Maybe you have beliefs within your marriage. Maybe you have beliefs around what career you can or can't do. Maybe you have beliefs at how people can behave and how they should behave. So we've talked a lot about Dr. David Hawkins' consciousness level, where he looks at emotions, thoughts, feelings, etc., in order to be able to come up with a Hertz frequency level for consciousness. But now I'm going to read out a list of someone else's definition of consciousness, and this is Lisa Renee, who runs the website energeticsynthesis.com, which is fascinating in itself. But more importantly, it helps us to understand how broad consciousness really is. As we perceive more of reality, we lose the conditioning and the illusions of the mind and become far more aware of what is truth and what feels like it isn't truth. So she likens expanding consciousness to getting back to compassion, to pure compassion within ourselves, and refers to expanding consciousness as increasing energy to the body, mind, heart, and spirit, and also increasing intelligence through non-linear thinking, increasing consciousness frequency, increasing sentience and sensory abilities, increasing connectivity between body functions, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, increasing awareness of intelligent energy in all things, increasing the connectivity of higher spiritual bodies, increasing frequency rate of combined energetic bodies, increasing energetic synthesis which initiates dormant DNA/RNA, increasing health and well-being through homeostasis, increasing peaceful and benevolent feelings, decreasing energy blocks which reduce density levels in matter, decreasing pain, addiction and suffering, decreasing deception, lies and delusions from magical or wishful thinking. Now this is quite a long list, but what we can understand from this is the full length and breadth of consciousness and how we are talking about consciousness in terms of us and consciousness in terms of the energy field. We can essentially see that expanding our consciousness is all about peeling back the delusions, beliefs, illusions of our mind, peeling back the limited stories from our childhood, peeling back the incorrect perceptions that we may have picked up from what we've been learning, what we watch, what we see, what we read. All of it is creating limited beliefs, limited ways of how we look at the world. And the more of these beliefs we have, the more controlled and lower vibrational we are, the less expanded our consciousness is, and the more we are existing in a very small prison, if you like, very small confined space of our own doing, of our own making. Expanding our consciousness allows us to see beyond the limited thinking of our world and realize that our mind really is creating everything. It is working with the electrical impulses around us. It is being stimulated by the electromagnetic field that we exist in. When we take our blinkers off or unpick our mind, we begin to see that higher intelligence and higher consciousness of the universe as well. The universe is sentient, and the entities and beings that live in the universe, including us, are sentient too. And we are surrounded by these sentient entities and beings, but we can even get beyond these too. And that's what I talk about in this month's blog, which I'll put the link in the notes afterwards. So, what tools and techniques can we use to help us expand our own consciousness? Well, journaling, as I said before, practicing emotional freedom technique, which is EFT, and of course meditation. So the more that you are able to connect to your higher mind, to your higher self, which is taking you into the higher dimensions, then the more you are able to connect with higher intelligence, with consciousness in a higher vibrational way, which is going to then feed back and upgrade your own body. And I think if you're new to this, probably one of the easiest ways to do this is to listen to the solfeggio frequencies, which I'm doing every day at the moment because life is chaotic and I feel myself slipping as well. So I find listening to the heart Hertz frequency is probably one of the most effective. And this is the 639 Hertz frequency. And this allows you to release stagnation and energy blockages from your heart. And your heart really is the seat of your wisdom. It is the connection to the energy field, the connection to the universe, and your connection to higher consciousness. And as most of us have blocked hearts in this Western world, and even in the modern world, learning to unpick the trauma that has got trapped in the heart and release it from the body will really enable you to raise your levels of consciousness, expand your consciousness in a much faster way than other methods. But what is possibly even more effective is when you go for a full body reset and listen to 963 Hertz, which is a connection to the higher self, connection to the higher dimensions, higher consciousness, the 639 Hertz frequency, which is the heart frequency, and also the 396 frequency, which links to your lower chakras and allows you to release fear, lower vibrational emotions, stress, anxiety from your body. And the more you can release these from your body, the more you can actually access this higher consciousness, higher intelligence of the higher mind yourself. If you only connect to the energy field with your mind on a regular basis, you have to practice great discernment, and you also need to be using very strong protection methods because you don't know who you're speaking to. And I'm not talking about ghosts and ghouls and things that go bump in the night like the movies are all teaching us. I'm talking about understanding which thoughts, feelings, emotions you're picking up, because everything is consciousness. We are surrounded by millions and millions of thoughts, words, emotions, feelings, and we need to understand what is our thought, what is someone else's, and also what thoughts are coming into our head that don't actually belong to us. So the best way around this is obviously to have good discernment, and the way to have good discernment is to know who you are and who you are not, is to know what are your thoughts and what aren't your thoughts. But more importantly, is to go through the heart. When you lead from the heart, when you go through the heart, when you meditate and come through the heart, when you practice heart-brain coherence before you meditate or during your meditation, you will be connecting automatically to the higher consciousness, higher intelligence. I think the sooner that we all wake up to the fact that we are living in a sentient universe with many sentient entities and beings surrounding us, some of which have physical bodies and some of which don't, I think that we will move into a far more expanded consciousness and far more empowering life, because it will really allow us to move out of the mind control of the physical world, out of the fear of the physical world, out of this constant bombardment of low vibrational frequencies into our psyche on a constant basis, which is keeping us all low vibrational, it's keeping the collective consciousness low vibrational, and we really need to move up and out of that fear. We need to let this density go and allow ourselves to connect to the sentient universe in a way which is going to really open us up, empower us, and allow us to live an enjoyable life. Another form of meditation is what Joe Dispenza calls walking meditation, where we stay focused on the observer point of our reality, observing our reality into being. I also talk about this in my book as well, because I talk about it in terms of observing yourself continuously, so you can become more self-aware of how you are acting, what beliefs you are acting from, what emotions and thoughts are driving your actions, because it really is mind mastery and energy mastery, which is emotional mastery, and expanding your consciousness so that you eventually get to enlightenment. So emotional mastery, mind mastery, and strong protection are the last three areas that I think will really help you in your life. I have a strong protection meditation on my website. It's only $10. I'll put the link in for that. But there probably are lots on YouTube. But again, practice discernment. Make sure that you're not listening to someone who is putting something into your energy field, into your psyche, that you don't want in there. Because when you're in the theta state, the lower alpha state, you are very suggestible and very open to what other people want to put into your psyche. So just beware of who you're listening to, beware of who you're following, beware of what you're reading, what you're watching, and understand that everything that you're seeing around you is putting energetic imprints into your energy field. So just be careful of what that is that's going in there. Okay, so we're going to end by just quickly going back to, so what does expanding your consciousness mean? Well, it essentially means expanding your awareness and moving it out into a much wider world. And we can do this by reading more, learning more, educating ourselves, practicing self-development so we can understand ourselves more, practicing journaling so we can get really deep into our subconscious mind and find those limiting beliefs, those limiting stories which are keeping us stuck in a very narrow consciousness. And also meditating and connecting to the higher dimensions, the higher intelligence, the higher consciousness of the energy field, which of course, is all consciousness, but connecting to that higher consciousness level so that we can access more subtle energy and experience feelings and sensations. The sensations are the subtle energies, and it allows us to feel and to know and to see and to perceive and to understand more than our physical self, more than our physical being, more than our physical world, which opens you up to a different type of intelligence. It's a non-linear intelligence, as Lisa Renee says, but it's a much wider and broader scope of intelligence. And of course, we can all access this. We all have access to this. But when you're in there, always practice discernment. And if something doesn't feel right for you, then it's not right for you at this time, at this point in your journey. And if you start to feel that things are not right for you, that thoughts and ideas and feelings are not right for you, then again, just raise your vibration up. Raise yourself up into the higher dimensions where you'll be able to access much higher intelligence. And if you want to learn more about any of the topics that I've been talking about in my podcast over the past few months, then do join me in my free Facebook group called Ascension and Expanding Consciousness, which is all about how we can raise our own vibration, how we can start working on our own consciousness, how we can release ourselves from the limitations of the collective consciousness, and how we can start to raise our vibration together. So there'll be lots of things in there, and I'll put the link in the notes so you can join from there. Okay, so I hope you have a good week, and I'll catch up with you next week for the first of my 3-part mini-series of Wealth Consciousness Mindset. But for now, take care and have a great week. Okay, thanks for listening. Bye.